Hello and welcome to Under the Hood. It is Monday, September 19th, 6:45. I'm Eli Karp, Editor-in-Chief, along with my panel today. We have Danimal, Rock the Barn, a new addition, Jacob Stillman, Jake Ostern, and Spentano. Week 2 of the NFL season in the books. Plenty of crying to go around. Lots of the injury bug has hit. The Giants are miraculously 2-0. Where else do we go from there? Let's start with our fantasy studs and duds. There are plenty of them these last 2 weeks, specifically this week where lower scoring battles. Spentano, I'm going to start with you. Who was your stud of the week?
My stud of the week, or the first 2 weeks, was Willie Snead, because with Marcus Colston gone in New Orleans, Drew Brees needs to find like a new go-to target, and Willie Snead has really emerged. Creds to Dan for keeping him on his team, but yeah, he's looking like a really nice player this year, and probably can be a wide receiver too on most teams.
And you did give credit to Dan on that one. Dan, since we're going to segue right into you and Willie Snead, who's your stud of the week? And we have a great shot. Dan?
What?
Who is your stud of the week? A little technical difficulty there.
Yeah, something cut out. But my stud for the week is Andrew Luck. Going into the season, I really didn't know how Andrew Luck was going to do, especially after his lacerated kidney. He's kind of a wild card. But 4 touchdowns against Detroit and a solid day against Denver. Of course, Detroit and Denver's defense, that's kind of a big gap in skill. But if he can stay healthy and continue what he's been doing, I think next year in the draft we'll be talking about him as a quarterback to get.
Okay. And I do apologize to our viewers who are watching live. We've moved to a slightly new platform, and there is no questions app where you can answer the questions, even though it did not seem to work when we wanted it to. And I do not have the chat bar on my screen, so just hold tight there and enjoy us without yourselves. Rock the Barn. The Jets pulled even with the Bills. Does your stud come from gangrene?
No, it does not. My stud, he's on my team, DeMarco Murray. I picked him just because I really didn't see who else I could pick in the draft, and he's turned out to be really helpful. I mean, he hadn't caught a wide receiver, like a catching touchdown, I don't think his whole career, and he's been on the Titans 2 weeks, and he's caught, I think, 2 or 3, and I just think he's been playing phenomenal, and I didn't see it coming whatsoever.
Rock the Barn inventing some new verbiage. A catching touchdown. Fancy schmancy. No Houston Texans on your list?
No.
No. All right, Jacob, who was your stud of the week?
My stud of the week, maybe a little home cooking, but Stephon Diggs for me. I think it was 180 yards and a touchdown. He's played really well the first couple weeks of the season, and especially if AP is out for a while, we're going to need a go-to receiver. So he's been playing well.
Well, no Gannon today, but definitely plenty of Stephon Diggs love. We knew we'd be getting it, and there it is. Again, he might be one of the breakout stars this year. We'll monitor him, but Sam Bradford definitely, even Sean Hill, they feel very comfortable throwing to him. Jake Ostern, was your stud on your team, or is he just someone else?
No, he was someone else, and it comes down. It was my stud of the week was Cam Newton of the Carolina Panthers. 4 touchdown passes, 353 passing yards, and a 46-27 win over the 49ers. Cam Newton showed why he is one of the top quarterbacks in the NFL, and he proved that on Sunday.
All right, well, I'm going to continue a little bit of the home cooking, and my stud of the week, I bet some of you can guess it. Sterling Shepard, the rookie wide receiver for the Giants. In his second game, he had his first ever over 100-yard receiving. I believe it was 111 yards, 7 receptions, ran great routes, held onto the ball, which nobody else on the Giants seemed to be able to do. Didn't find the end zone, which nobody on the Giants besides Janoris Jenkins seemed to be able to do. And he was one of the main reasons the Giants kept drives alive, and eventually helped win them the game, even though that was Victor Cruz in the final minutes. So now we're going to move on to duds, and I'll start by saying that if you find a dud, they're probably a running back on my fantasy team, because my running backs have been taking L's both weeks now. They have not. First week they did not do anything. Eddie Lacy didn't do anything. Thomas Rawls, last week he was limited, but this week he was absolutely shut down and has a little injury. Danny Woodhead, good week 1, but then decided to tear his ACL week 2. Keenan Allen also decided to do that the week before, so that helps too. Adrian Peterson, torn meniscus, he's out for 4+ weeks. Who am I going to plug and play? Justin Forsett was dropped. I'm going to Spencer Ware. I even started him, and he's only going to be the starting running back for the Chiefs for maybe one more week. So even if he's a backup, he's not worth a wide receiver spot on my a running back spot on my fantasy team. So I mean, my running backs are just taking L's across the board. It's kind of ridiculous. Who are we going to go to? Let's go to Jake Ostern. Jake Ostern, who is your fantasy dud?
Fantasy dud comes from the Bay Area. It's Carlos Hyde of the San Francisco 49ers. Had only 14 carries for only 34 yards in a week 2 loss to Carolina. Not typical for a star running back. I just found it very surprising to see that stat. I mean, Carlos Hyde usually has great games, and it's just unusual to see a guy with so much talent just get limited to under 40 yards.
Interesting point you make there, because obviously traveling on the road to Carolina, who boasts one of the stoutest run defenses in the league. So I almost find your statement more surprising than his performance. But yes, definitely not a happy owner if you had Carlos Hyde. Jacob, who was your fantasy dud of the week?
My fantasy dud of the week was Antonio Brown. He was targeted 11 times, but only caught 4 balls for 39 yards. Maybe it was because of the conditions. It was very rainy, and I mean the field conditions were bad too. But I wouldn't read into that too much. I think he'll be fine the rest of the way, but he had a bad week this week.
You can add him to duds on my fantasy team. So feel free, just pile them on, will you? Because it's just a heaping pile of duds on all my fantasy team. Danimal, who underperformed?
Going along with Carlos Hyde, I also have to go with a West Coast running back, Todd Gurley. Obviously projected to be one of the best running backs in fantasy this year, and in the last 2 weeks he's just not been good, putting up a lot of duds. Obviously one of the reasons is the Rams cannot give him any space in the backfield to run, and they've been played some pretty good defenses with Seattle and San Francisco, and they don't have a bad rush. But if he has a bad game against Tampa Bay, and if I'm a Todd Gurley owner, I'm starting to worry. He might have just been a big waste of probably a early first-round pick, and my prayers go out to Happy, who picked Todd Gurley and has had no progress in peace his first running back spot, and we'll have to see how the rest of the season.
You make a good point, and I would like to point out that aside from David Johnson, who's had a pretty decent start to the year so far, all the NFC West running backs have sucked. Thomas Rawls, awful. Carlos Hyde, he played all right against LA, but LA was just awful in that game. And he could not get anything going against an elite defense. And even if Carolina is an elite defense, an elite runner should be able to find something. And Todd Gurley, again, I don't think the Niners' run D is anything that good. Obviously, it's not easy going against Seattle, but still, it's been very underwhelming. Possibly a sophomore slump for him, and that would really decimate some fantasy lineups. Rock the Barn, what did you not like this week?
I didn't have him on my team, but I feel like the whole team in general, the Jacksonville Jaguars, are not been playing what they were projected to be doing. They're supposed to be a team on the rise, but a player in particular is definitely Allen Robinson, supposed to be their top wide receiver, and he's just not playing well whatsoever. I feel like he's supposed to be a top wide receiver in fantasy football. A lot of people picked him pretty early, first or second round, and he's just not put up the numbers that he was supposed to.
You know, I feel like on your computer screen you have my fantasy lineup pulled up, and you're just taking names. It's absolutely ridiculous what has gone on. Let's see. Spentano, I think you're the only one who I have not gotten to for your dud of the week.
It's really all the top running backs, kind of, besides like Lamar Miller and David Johnson. But this one hurts me even more since I traded Gronk away for him. Devontae Freeman, who was supposed to be the number 9 player in all this, has put up 2 complete duds, and he is now splitting touches with Tevin Coleman because he's just stuck so much. Like after having such a breakout year. And it's pretty disappointing because I traded for him, so I feel the pain.
Add this to the list of examples why Spentano will never be a GM. Okay, actually, the questions app is not working, but we're going to take a little break because I've gotten a message saying I do have a question through the chat app, and it says, "Hey, Eli, who do you think through 2 weeks have been the most impactful rookies for their respective teams?" And then I'll get to his next question in a minute. So who am I going to throw this to? Who has been the most impactful rookies? Let's go Spentano.
Dak Prescott had an amazing, not an amazing,
knew it was
but
coming.
a very, very good game against Washington. He managed the game so well. He drove very well in the 30s, and he proved he could. Well, the team could score in the red zone, and he put them in positions. And just with how bad Ezekiel Elliott's played, Dak kind of had to step up that game, and he did. He targeted Dez. He got Dez involved, and that really got the offense moving.
And I will have to say, speaking of Ezekiel Elliott, he could be qualified as a dud because through 2 weeks, he really has not shown any flashes that resemble a 6th overall pick in a fantasy draft. Never mind a 5th overall pick in the real NFL draft. Rock the Barn, did you have your hand up?
Yeah. I mean, I feel like he's not overrated. He's a great running back at Ohio State. I just feel like because of his rookie season and how well he ran, he was projected a little higher than he should have. I don't feel that he should have been picked as high as many people would have expected him to. Like Roman in our league, I think picked him pretty high, and I don't think he should have. I think he's more of a 3rd-round guy. I mean, they really expected a lot from him, and I just don't think I didn't expect him from the beginning to play as well as people thought he would.
Okay, fair assessment. And his next question, this is Stephen Scott's. Thank you for the question. What do you think will happen between Odell Beckham Jr. and Josh Norman this week? I think it's interesting because plenty of people say that, Josh Norman doesn't line up against the opposing team's best receiver, and that really isn't true for most of the part. Even me being a Josh Norman hater, I don't find that completely true. But for the case of this game where tension and emotions are going to be running very high, I'm not sure they will have Josh Norman on Odell the whole time. They may have him sometimes, but I think in the best interest of both teams, they'll probably try to keep each other away. Any other take on this? Spentano.
I think that Odell's going to go for 150-plus yards in that game. Like, Josh Norman, he can play well, but the Redskins they paid a guy $75 million to stay on the right side of the field, which is great. But Rashad Breeland, the other corner, is just so god-awful. Des Bryant just tore him up. And Odell is better than Dez, I'll admit that. And Odell is just he's going to shred that awful pass defense.
Well, yes. Thank you from the Cowboys fan. Josh Norman sucks. All right, Jacob.
To kind of piggyback off of what he was saying, Breeland on the other side was playing so bad last game. I think they did towards the end bring Norman over to shadow Desmore. I think the Redskins are so desperate to play better. I think they'll have Norman shadow Odell. I mean, it's going to be fun. to watch.
It should be fun. Hopefully, there's not too many semantics. I would like to take this time to commemorate that we have 4 live viewers at the moment. This is monumental. 4 live viewers. Thank you for helping to get us to this point, and to our team who is feeding us questions that we can't see right now. So thank you for the questions and for the loyal viewership. We're going to go pretty rapid fire after this next segment, and that is contender and pretender. Who in the NFL is really going to make something out of their season. Let's start with our contenders with Jacob.
My contender, the Texans. I think they've been playing well so far. I think their defense is better than is playing better than it's ever been before. I think, offensively, I think Will Fuller has really helped out on offense. Now they have a deep guy to go along with DeAndre Hopkins. I think they can really do some damage this year.
Agreed. I'm sure Rock the Barn could agree with you on that one. He loves his Texans.
That was going to be one of my original picks for.
All right, you can still go with them. We have another question from the audience. 2 questions. This is ridiculous. Okay, Eli, what do you think about the Jets? Well, what do I think about the Jets? I think I like the Jets coming into the season. I think they made a few too many errors that lost them the game to Cincinnati, even scratched the kicks. And they did not look great against Buffalo, but at the same time, the offense looks humming. Eric Decker turned in a nice performance. Brandon Marshall got over that 100-yard marker, which got me that 3-point bonus. But I'm going to defer this one really to Rock the Barn because he is our resident Jets fan.
Yeah, they've been playing pretty well. I expected them to beat Cincinnati. It was kind of sad. Nick Folk and some bad plays. But there's 2 things that bother me with the Jets right now. It's Brandon Marshall, if he could stay healthy after a minor injury to his knee. I don't know which knee it was, but to one of his knees in the game against Buffalo. If he can stay healthy, it'd be a huge factor. And Darrelle Revis is not what he used to be, and it's really sad because he was such a good cornerback, and he can't guard people like he used to. And a lot of people on Instagram and Twitter and other social media pages have really been making fun of him, and it's really annoying. And I feel like they've got to figure out a way to reserve him so that he isn't going to get burnt every single time there's a play ran. But overall, they've been playing well, and I feel like they can make at least the 2nd spot in their division because no one's ever going to beat the Patriots in that division until Belichick leaves. It's horrible.
If you're getting trounced by a Garoppolo and the Patriots, then there's no chance anyone else is winning the division. So the Jets at this point are trying to make the wild card. There's no chance they're beating the Patriots.
And they've got such a tough schedule, too. It's really annoying.
They do have a tough schedule. The Giants have one of the easiest schedules in the league. Probably most of the reason that they're going to do, hopefully, as well as they do. But what was I going to say? Yes, Darrelle Revis. As you know, I do like to make fun of him and add some colorful language to him, too. He is no longer Revis Island. He is Revis Archipelago. And I'm going to throw the next one to Danimal.
The next pretender and contender, you mean?
Yeah, just give me both.
Oh, okay. So my pretender is the Tampa Bay Buccaneers after Jameis Winston throwing 4 interceptions. And yeah, that's a lot. And the defense definitely did not stop the bleeding. They gave up like 42 points and only scored 1 touchdown against the Cardinals. And the Cardinals are teams you're going to be facing. They're the teams with the skill level you're probably going to be facing in the playoffs and top tier teams. And if the Buccaneers can't show they can beat them, it's going to be rough for them, especially with opponents coming up with the Rams, Broncos, and Panthers, which have some pretty solid defenses. And if Jameis Winston can't handle the heat, they will just fall apart this season.
Okay, and your contender.
Yes, my contender is the Vikings. They showed a great show against the Packers last night, especially a divisional opponent and playoff Packers. It's a great to get a win against them. Sam Bradford, obviously people speculating against him, but he had a great day, almost throwing 300 yards and 2 touchdowns. And if they can hold the offense and defense together, I think the Vikes have a shot this season.
All right, and Dan, Rock the Barn, we know that you don't think the Jets are going to go very far, but who do you see going far? And yes, we know you love the Texans, so you can tell us why.
Well, I feel like the Texans are going to go far, but another team that has looked really good to me. Oh my God, I completely forgot. I've gone on a complete blank. Oh my God.
You can go with the Texans if you want.
I'm just going to start with my pretenders because I completely forgot for a second. I'm sorry. But my pretender is definitely the Eagles because even though they're starting 1-0, Carson Wentz looking well, they're just they're trying to make the wild card. There's no chance they're going to win the division with a weird division that they're in. They don't have enough skill yet. Carson Wentz is still young. I think it has a lot to depend. A lot depends on tonight's game against the Bears too. I just think they're a real pretender.
Monday Night Football drawing awful matchups yet again. Keep going.
And my contender was.
It's turning.
Come back to me. I completely forgot of the team name.
All right, Jacob, we're going to come to you for your pretender.
My pretender. My pretender was the Raiders. I know a lot of people were high on them going into the season, and they pulled out a win in New Orleans. And their offense is playing well, but defensively, I'm not liking what they're doing at all, really. So I think until they get their defense up to par with their offense, they're not going anywhere.
All right, Jake Ostern, the ever opinionated Jake Ostern. Who are your contender and pretender?
Well, I'll start off with the pretender. We're going to the Mile High City, the Denver Broncos. Even though they're 2-0, I just don't have a lot of high hopes on them on the offensive side of the ball. Without Peyton Manning, they're not the same. Trevor Siemian so far has 1 touchdown pass and 3 interceptions. When you don't have a good offense, it kind of really messes up your game plan. But the Broncos defense is one of the tops in the NFL. But they're the 2-0 team that I'm most concerned about because of the struggling offense without Peyton Manning, who obviously retired. My contender is the Carolina Panthers. Even though they're 1-1, they have a great offense and a good defense too. Cam Newton even had a great week on Sunday against San Francisco. Had 4 touchdown passes for 353 yards. Tight end Greg Olsen had 5 receptions for 122 yards with 1 touchdown in week 2, and Kelvin Benjamin caught 2 touchdown passes in week 2. So even though the Panthers are at 500, they're the team that I'm looking forward to most watching to make a big push for the playoffs.
Jake, you're making more headline-worthy comments that you're calling the Denver Broncos pretenders. I really do find that interesting, especially even last year. Even with Peyton Manning, their offense just wasn't good, and their defense looks to be carrying them away again. But we'll leave that for another day, and we'll continue. All right, so Spentano, we're gonna finish up our then with me, but let's get your pretender and contenders.
My pretender is the San Diego Chargers because they look pretty good on offense both weeks, but just they don't have enough depth at defense, and I don't think Bosa's even played yet, and their offense is just taking too many blows with Danny Woodhead and Keenan Allen both gone. I don't think that they're gonna last that long. They just kind of they got exposed in the fourth quarter against the Chiefs. That was for sure. They just fell apart in that game. And then the Jaguars just were the Jaguars. So, and for my contender, I did have the Texans, but I'm going to have to go a different route. And as much as it pains me to say this, I'm going to go with the Giants because this looked pretty bad. They finally proved that they can play defense, which they could not do the life of them last year, but they've held their opponents to 19 and 13 points, and those were two pretty good offenses that showed up in the opposite weeks that they played in. So they've done a pretty good job there, and I'll give them credit for that.
All right, it really is. You're taking the Giants' side here, first against Josh Norman, and then calling them contenders. I mean, it's like the worst. The world is turned upside down. But I will say that yes, they can play defense, but they're winning the close games. In the first 2 games of the season this year, they're doing the things that they could not do last year, and that is nice to see. For my contender, it's a little bland, but after a tough week 1, they really rebounded well in week 2, and that is Arizona. The Cardinals, they probably shouldn't have lost to Jimmy Garoppolo and the Patriots, although we're kind of getting to see how Jimmy Garoppolo has kind of formed into his own a little bit, but they absolutely thrashed the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who again a lot thought this could be an interesting year for them. But they put the pedal to the metal. The defense had a score and multiple takeaways. Carson Palmer on point. And it's a good day for the Cardinals when Drew Stanton is in only in the 4th quarter. Otherwise, it's bad. And for my pretender, Spentano, no, it was not Spentano. But one of you said Oakland. I agree with that, but I'm also going to go to Atlanta. I don't think either of those teams are contenders. I think they're both pretenders. You see, Atlanta lost to Tampa, who got absolutely taken to this week, and they beat the Raiders by a touchdown. But it would, those are 2, in my mind, mediocre teams who I didn't really have many expectations for the Falcons coming in. I had more for the Raiders. But so far, based on what I've seen from both of them, I don't believe in either of them. All right, so now that that's out of the way, we're going to go rapid fire because we got to wrap this up. And quick one-liners are college football week 3 takeaways. Jacob, we're going to start with you.
Lamar Jackson from Louisville, most exciting player I've ever seen in college football.
All right. Jake?
North Dakota State. They upset number 13 Iowa on Saturday, game-winning field goal. They're a great and dangerous team, and they have the ability to beat an FBS team.
All right. Rock the barn?
Notre Dame falling apart, and Houston is going to make the playoffs if they keep it up.
Danimal?
How about Oklahoma falling to Houston week 1 and getting dominated by Ohio State? I wouldn't be surprised to see them plummet in the rankings.
All right. And lastly, my takeaway from college football week 3 is that Alabama is now road tested. Even though they thrashed USC and played some no-name week 2, they faced a really tough opponent who they had trouble getting over the hump with in Ole Miss. They went to Oxford, and they eventually took care of business. So with that, I'd like to thank you for joining us. And
I remembered who I had. It was the Steelers.
It was the Steelers. See, it always works out before it ends. Thank you, Rock the Barn. So with that, I'm going to bid you all farewell. Good night. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time.